Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craving.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Hey, Jody Lynn, you know how we have our regular contingent of listeners who always, it's like a little community we have, right? And they love us, we love them. That's been going on for quite some time now. But this is a global community, right? We're kind of all over the place, except today, because today you're like neighbors with our guest, Charissa.
Literally,
that's like holy crap,
like a stone's throw away, pretty much.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Very,
because we haven't had that at all. And you're both coaches, because she's an empowerment coach, and you're a money coach. So you're both kind of in the same field. I mean, this may be one of those conversations where I don't have a whole lot to say.
I doubt that, Walt, but
okay, so you know me well. I get it. All right.
It's gonna be awesome. And it's great. The closest we've ever got to like home for me is Calgary.
That's right. So, that's true. Yeah. So we've broken the record.
Exactly.
I love it. This is going to be good. So Charissa Hanan, thank you for joining us and welcome from Alberta, Canada. We're glad to have you here. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your guys' movement.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And what's especially exciting is there's a storm going through your area right now that you're both affected by. So just the fact that we actually got you both here on the show, that's like, all right, this is awesome. I love this.
Yeah.
Just means it's entirely meant to be.
That's right. Exactly.
100%.
So we were talking before while Jody Lynn was trying to iron out the tech details. We were talking about your background, your story, and so forth. And it's quite a fascinating story. Why don't you give the audience an idea of all the stuff that you've gone through that has got you to the point where you are now doing what you're doing?
Absolutely. And like I say, it's a roller coaster and there's many twists and turns to it. So sometimes I find it hard to condense it down, but
we love roller coasters around here, especially roller coaster journeys, because those are the most interesting ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I grew up in a really small town just outside of Grand Prairie. So Redwater, where I live now, is my second home. It's not my original one. And I was determined that I was going to impact the world. So I went off and I became a massage therapist. But in that time, I had been a competitive dancer growing up. So I was in relatively good shape and healthy and all of those things. But when I went off to university, I ended up by putting on more than the freshman 15. And what I didn't realize at the time is I wasn't dealing with my emotions well. I had made big life changes. I was closer to the end of a relationship that I had been in for four years. So from 16 till 4. And there was a lot of factors that were going on that I didn't put two and two together. So I ended up by putting on quite a bit of weight. And it wasn't until I graduated from massage school that I correlated that my happiness was causing, or my lack of happiness, to word it better, was causing my weight gain. So I wasn't feeling good in life. I wasn't aware of how to label my emotions. So I was using food to try and feel better. And I didn't realize that the relationship I was in was causing emotional disruption, things like that, because I didn't grow up with emotional regulation or emotional intelligence about things. It's all stuff I actually had to learn on my own going through this big, massive weight gain. I was 60 pounds overweight compared to what I had been. And I had no idea who the person was looking back at me. I had tried every negative way to try and lose the weight. And it wasn't until I actually finished massage school, got the job of my dreams, being able to live down in Calgary and practice, that our clinic flooded, which seemed like a bad thing, but I got 10 days off and I went to my grandparents and it was sunny in the Okanagan. And I put on clothes that I hadn't worn until the summer before and they were too big for the very first time. They were too big. I wasn't focused on trying to lose weight. I wasn't, speaking mean to myself. I had shifted my focus to being a really good massage therapist and showing up really well for my clients. And that was a shift that allowed me to start releasing weight because I wasn't numbing anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was the first aha moment. And then I jumped into the gym and training and started getting myself into better physical health. But getting into that, groove of a young adult, I started drinking. And I didn't drink beforehand because I had seen the impacts of it in a small town. It was what my family used to, if you're happy, drink. If you're upset, drink. If it's been a rough day, you have a drink. Every reason was a reason to drink. And so, again, I didn't realize that I didn't really understand the impact. So I traded food for drinking. And when I moved overseas to Scotland, it just amplified it because they drank all the time. It's very cool. I didn't know anybody over there. I moved with just a whim. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job, didn't have a place to live, and just figured it out. So it was now coping better with my emotions, but still not a good grasp on them is when I started using alcohol. And it was a fairly consistent problem for probably about 10 years before I actually realized what I was doing with it.
Yeah.
Face to face with my choices that I made. And unfortunately, I did get a DUI. Luckily, I did not hurt anybody, but it really forced me to realize who was making the choices and what was I actually running from. Because everywhere I went, no matter it was Northern Alberta, Southern Alberta, or around the world, I was still running into problems.
Yeah, isn't it annoying when you discover that no matter where you go, you bring yourself along?
Yeah, I was saying no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah.
And that is what it took for me to actually realize you need to work on this. This is your actions, your choices. It doesn't matter you didn't have it growing up. You have to gain it now, or you're going to keep repeating the same thing.
Yeah.
So true.
Breakthrough moments there.
Lots.
And it doesn't sound easy. I mean, like you flew around the world to run away.
Yeah. And I didn't realize I was running away at the time. I thought it was just going to be, and this was a surprise to everybody. I had a practice of 3 years. I was doing well. I was up for a raise. I'd gone on a continuing education trip to Greece. And when I got there, I'm like, nope, there's something in me that we got to move. And I didn't realize that part of that was running away from feeling resentful from being a people pleaser for a really long time. So there was a lot of awakening that came from moving far away and then coming back and having to face, the alcohol problems that I was having.
Wow.
That's really interesting. I mean, we've heard obviously lots of people talking about being people pleaser and the various ways that they've coped with it or attempted to cope with it. But I don't remember anyone saying particularly what you just said because you were pissed. You were pissed about it.
Yeah, I would get to the point that because I thought if I'm really good to people, then they'll be good back to me. And that's not true. They just use you more. And then when you put boundaries in place, they get mad because the version that they could use doesn't exist anymore. So it was literally, I got mad. I moved away to the other side of the world and I didn't talk to a lot of people for a month. I didn't give anybody my phone number. I was just like, I'll show you.
I'm out of here. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get that. Well, when you found that didn't really work out so well, then what? Because now you're in another country. What do you do?
Well, in the other country, I was solo, right? So I didn't have a support system. I didn't have things to lean on. I actually had to go out there and talk to people. I had to build up my whole new life. Luckily, my massage followed me there. So I had the option to have a really good job, which means I financially could provide for myself. But I started to learn what I liked and how to show up and how to be more independent and outspoken and all of that because I was quite shy and quite closed off. And I was just doing things to get approval from people and make things feel safe for myself. So when I moved to the other side of the world, I actually ended up by finding myself instead of who I didn't know anybody, so I didn't know who to be. So I actually just had to be who I wanted to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's the hard way to go. If you don't have that support system, that's definitely the hard way to go. And I know that because I've been on that road. It's not an easy way to go. But by the same token, when you're on that road, there's no one else to blame. There's no one else to point to. I mean, you're on your own. You got to figure this stuff out. And you actually sound like you did a pretty good job figuring it out. I'm not sure quite how you did that, but you did.
I'm a very persistent person and I'm willing to work really hard.
Well, more than that though, you had to have acquired some way of being really deeply honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's not what most people will do, you know, when they're in that kind of situation. You got honest in a way that a lot of people won't.
No. But I was also ready because everything else, there was nothing there of my old life. So I couldn't live in the same lies because it wouldn't work. There was nobody to uphold those lies I had created for myself.
Yeah. Good point.
I used to tell myself I was a very shy person, and I'm like, I can't be that way and exist here. It will be very lonely. It'll like I just won't function here. So I have to act differently than I am used to. So it was really getting honest with myself of how I was acting back home and what that had created.
Wow. Yeah. How much of this is sounding familiar, Jody Lynn?
Oh, so much. Just change the name. And don't move across the world. But I thought about it. I was actually going to move to Saskatchewan. And really, when that kind of fell through. And when it fell through, I realized, oh, the reason I was doing it was because I thought, oh, if I move, then when I come back, they will be forced to give me attention because they never see me. So then I will get what I want and what I need from them, my family. They will, they will pay attention to me. They will make me a priority. All of these things that I had inside of my head, which it wasn't going to change anything because I was still the same.
Yeah.
So,
annoying, isn't that?
Yeah. Yeah. You take you everywhere you go. Until you realize that that's a good thing and that it can be a superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When do you think you first recognized that?
When I started to appreciate me and actually become my own best friend.
Yeah.
Like, understand and like just have that compassion for myself like I would my own best friend. That's kind of where it shifted for me.
You too, Charissa?
Yeah. When I realized that I'm the only one. And then I look back and I'm like, I was the only one supporting me, even though I was home anyhow. Right. And when you take that physical step back, in my case, or that imaginary step back and look and observe, then you can see things more clearly because the emotion's not there. And you can see where the parts are. And it's like everything you experience in life, who's that one person that's there with you? Yourself. And then you start treating that like a healthy relationship because this person, you, yourself, and you are there through everything. So you start not fighting with yourself, but actually being like, what do we want to do together? How are we navigating this?
Yeah.
See, I'm thinking back on my own life. There was a period of time where I ran away. I lived on the East Coast, but I ran away for a year to Oregon and lived there for almost a full year. And that really was a form of running away. But I can't honestly say that I got that honest with myself about this was me that was causing all my problems. I was very happy to say that it was other circumstances. And I stuck with that story for quite some time. So that's why I say I admire the fact that you guys were able to just dive right in and just get real honest. Like, okay, yeah. Well,
I think for me, it was like I started personal development early on in life, like when I was like 20 or 23 or something like that. And my dad has been teaching me personal development all along my life. But I remember in that course, they were like, well, it's up to you. And, what is it? Your responsibilities, your ability to respond, and all of these, words and phrases of like, oh, if it's going to change, it's up to me. I'm in the driver's seat. So I think with that mentality, I believed that I could change things. And then when you get quiet and you're like, oh, right, it's up to me. Okay, let's go.
Similar for you with Charissa?
Yeah. I was tired of being told what to do. So it's like, okay, if I don't want to hear what other people think I should be doing, then that means I have to step up and make choices. Some choices were easier to make, like the job, what I wanted to do. I was dead set. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And then from there, it was really deciding, it's like, oh, nobody can't tell me not to go to overseas because I pay my own bills. I have my own mind. And then it took a while for that to realize that actually applies to every area of your life, right? I made certain aha moments overseas, but then certain things with like relationships came much later after coming back from being overseas multiple times. So it was like an unraveling of layers, not everything all at once. That would have saved me a lot of heartache.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, something else that I heard in the story as you were telling, for me, for most people, when they think about trying to have the life they want, especially if they're talking about law of attraction, but just in general, if they're trying to talk about what they're wanting in life, it comes down to like 3 broad categories. I mean, there's a lot more than that, but broadly speaking, it's either money, relationships, or health. That's some combination of those 3. Yes. And my position on that has always been, well, you better put the health first, because if you don't have that, the other 2 are just a waste of your time. You're not going to get anywhere. So and your story included that, because health was like the first thing that really popped up as an issue for you. So it's almost like you set yourself up to do the most important part first.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, that definitely catapulted me into the confidence to do the other things.
It makes sense. And Jody Lynn, you had a similar thing too.
Right. Yeah. Health, like looking back, it was always the first thing I did for like any major transformation was I started with my body first. It's like, oh, and a lot of times it was from the superficial physical side of things. Like, I don't like the way that I look, or, I don't like this or that. But yeah, I always started with health when I was like at rock bottom. Okay, what can I do? I can go to the gym. Yeah, right. I can go for a walk or whatever it was. I can eat better.
See, I'm thinking that whether you did it intentionally, the 2 of you established a foundation for yourselves that literally made it easier in some ways for you to get to that honesty place.
Yeah. There was less.
Maybe I'm wrong about that, but what's that?
There was less in the way. Like once you get your health, even if it's not exactly where you want it, if you get it a little bit sorted, then it's not that dangling thing in front of you anymore. And then more can come up to the surface. Like, okay, now I feel better. Maybe I want a relationship. Okay, then that stuff comes up, or maybe I want a different job. All of that starts to fester to the top.
Yeah. But more than that, I'm thinking about the piece where you had to get really honest with yourself about who the common denominator was and what to do about that. I mean, because that's the hard part. First, recognizing that that's what you have to do, and second of all, actually, doing something about it. And I'm thinking the health part I think the health actually provided the foundation for you to make that choice to go after that.
Absolutely. It comes down to, do you want more of the same? Once you have that awareness, you're either going to create more of the same knowingly, or you're going to be able to create something different because now you're aware, let's do something different.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It makes you think though, doesn't it?
That's the point.
Well, it makes me think. Again, like I was saying, it took me a long time to get that honest with myself. I mean, it didn't happen within like a couple of years. We're talking like decades, and I'm sure there are many other people who have had a similar experience to me, either going only so far or maybe not going anywhere at all. Just, like, I'm just not going to deal with this thing. And then they deal with it by not dealing with it for years. You were talking about that as the 4th option. When we're preparing for the show, and it's the 4th option. Just choose to do nothing. People stick there for a long, long time, and they get very uncomfortable, but they justify it in their minds. So whenever I'm interviewing somebody or having a conversation with somebody here on the show who made the shift and said, you know what, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to get honest. I'm going to start focusing on the improvement. I'm going to take the steps. I admire it, because that's not commonplace. That's the exception. It's one of the reasons I love Jody Lynn being a co-host on the show, because she's like, the embodiment of that. And here you are, essentially telling the same kind of story.
And she's my neighbor.
You're the neighbor, yeah. Maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know.
No, it's not. I feel like it's just a very unique, specific thing, because as I'm sharing these stories, part of it is I didn't give myself another choice.
Mm.
So I think it's part of how I'm designed as a person that I didn't give myself the option to go backwards. Once I was exposed to it, I had to do something about it. There was no option in my mind that said, okay, we're just going to hide behind this.
Yeah.
It would have been nice at points because doing the facing everything is not easy and it is not for the faint of heart,
No.
though everybody can do it. But it was definitely something that I'm like, no, there was no choice. It was go forward or go forward. That was all that my situation allowed me.
At what point did this journey that you were on, this work that you did and so forth, at what point did that turn into, I want to help other people with it?
It was a more recent thing. Like I've always wanted to help people and I've helped them with the massage and teaching them as I learned things or went through things I would teach. But it's the last 5 years that wasn't enough. I was always still searching. Was it another modality? Was it another training that I needed to do? And when my coach that was helping me with my health and my fitness said that you would be a really good coach, my brain's like, this is what I need to do. I can help more people on a deeper level, not just the superficial change of the body, but really diving into the things that are blocking them and creating external to reflect what your internal is doing. That was more the last 5 years that I'm like, now I feel like I really have that purpose.
Yeah. Okay. So that created the springboard for you.
Yes.
Yeah. And similar to you, Jody Lynn, I mean, you kind of had your path was a little bit different, but same kind of dynamic, really.
Felt like I had to do more.
Yeah.
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 It's a beautiful place to be.
It is.
It's almost like it is a consequence, not a consequence, but it kind of is a consequence. It's an inevitable next part of having gone through this, because I mean, we've had lots of guests on the show who have been through all kinds of traumas and they end up, doing something to change their career, or they create a course or write a book or, something along that line to help other people. It's the helping other people part. That is a very, very common theme among the guests who come onto the show. And it makes me realize that's a human element that probably plays out a lot more often than we realize in the broader society. It's just that there aren't quite so many people who have actively taken the steps so they can actually be helpful to somebody else. That's what you did.
Yeah. Or even have the belief in themselves that they could do it.
Yeah.
Or that they would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people get stuck there too.
Sure.
Yeah. There's a really good saying that I've come across recently, and it's like your story becomes somebody else's survival guide. So it's important to pull back the curtains and not necessarily air your dirty laundry, but by being transparent about the things you've actually experienced in your life and made it through to the other side. You only have to be one step ahead of a person to be able to be helpful to them. So sharing it gives that person who's struggling with the same thing as you hope that they can get through it too.
Yeah. Did you find, I know Jody Lynn found this, but I'm also curious to know if you found, do you find that as you were contemplating taking on this new career path, that your market, so to speak, was already appearing before you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a common theme, particularly among we lost Jody Lynn. Hopefully she'll be right back. But that's a common theme that crops up among people who are successful in the coaching realm. I have a good friend that I was having a conversation with earlier today, and she's not currently a coach, but she's thinking about becoming a coach. She's around my age. She's in her 60s, and she has a lot of friends who are young women who are moms in their 30s for the most part. Yeah. And she finds that they're all, peppering her with questions constantly, asking for advice and so forth. And she's saying, I should become a coach because I have so much to tell these people about. Here's what you really want to know about what, becoming a parent is all about that nobody's going to tell you. She wants to do that kind of a thing because the audience is right there. And it sounds like the same kind of thing happened with you.
Yeah, it's essentially presenting itself. It's like, okay, it's validation that the knowledge that I have from my experiences, and for your friend as well, is useful. It wasn't just something that I survived and on to the next thing. It's actually something that multiple people will struggle with, and they need a voice, right? You're going to hit the right people with the right message.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, it has to be something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. And lived experience has a different tone to it compared to practicality of here's the theory behind it. And if you do X, Y, and Z, it's like there's no humanness to that.
Yes. Well, that's
Right?
also the difference between a boring podcast and an interesting podcast. You just named it right there. When I get one of those guests who, especially if I get a guest who has a doctor in front of their name, I always cringe like, oh, is it going to be one of those interviews where they're there just to be the expert, to give you all the information? And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I get through this hour?
I feel like the ones that have the biggest impact are the ones that are worried that they're being an imposter, that my message isn't enough because I'm not the expert, but you survived and you've been through the thing and you're on the other side still doing well.
Sure, because like we talked about earlier, on the one hand, you are relatable, particularly to your audience, to your potential clientele. You've been through something similar to what they're going through, so they can relate to it and say, oh yeah, she'll understand me better than somebody else will. So that's part of it, right? And then another piece of it is that not only are you relatable, you're also, because you have been through the same kind of thing, you're more empathetic to them. You can understand where they're coming from. So not only can they count on you to understand, but they can also count on you to be friendly about it. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that stops us from doing that deep work. We're afraid that if we work with somebody else, they're just going to criticize us, which is not what a good coach does, but that's the fear that we have.
Yeah. Well, it's creating a place for that person to be seen, because if I use the language of what a person who's experienced this would understand, your person is like, holy man, you just called me out. Not just, hey, you on the street. It's like you're actually handpicking those people with their attention with what you have to say, because it is actually making them feel seen.
Right. Yeah. And in the process of doing that, you're also you're sending subconscious messaging is what I'm trying to drive at.
Yes.
I mean, I imagine some of it is conscious and overt, but a large part of it is you're sending the message that none of that it needs to stop them.
No. It can literally be used as fuel to drive you instead of stand in your way, because you think that's the thing that discounts you or takes you out of the race of life because this thing happened.
Not an easy message to hear, but it can be encouraging. It depends on what your mindset is. And well, that's what most of this is all about, right? It's all about the mindset.
100%. We can see the same thing, but if you have a negative mindset, you're going to see it in a doomsday way. If you have a positive mindset, you're going to see, oh, that's a silver lining. Here we go. Here's the lesson.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, Jody Lynn just texted me. She's as suspected, the storm knocked her off, but she's trying to reconnect. So hopefully she'll be able to join us before we're done here.
It was the clap of thunder out my window that I'm like, oh,
okay.
No.
Yeah, you heard it too. Okay, so there it is.
I do.
Yep, that's just the challenge. Let's continue on the theme of once you became a coach and you're starting to work with clients, what was the experience like from your perspective? Because I mean, I know what it's like as an entrepreneur. Anytime you start a new business, you're trying to do it, as being as much of an expert as you can, so you can be, relatable to your clientele, all that kind of stuff. But using the terminology you used before, you feel like you have the imposter syndrome. Like, oh well, can they really trust me? What do I know? I haven't done this before. So when you're first dealing with your clientele for the first time, talk about what that was like.
I leaned into the trust I had in myself for reading people from a massage point, because it was really to best serve the people that came to be clients, was understanding where they are and what they're actually struggling with. So it wasn't trying to yes, we have procedures and habits that we have every day, but it's like, okay, how is that person struggling with this? Really just getting to the root of where they're at, instead of just seeing, because I'm good at seeing the potential in people. So I had to allow myself to be like, okay, that's later. Where are they now? How can I best support them now? And actively having conversations and reminding myself that I only have to be one step ahead of them. And then the people that came, it's like, okay, I'm more than one step ahead of them. I know I can be impactful. I just need to make sure that the way I'm presenting things and asking questions is actually in a way that makes them feel seen and that they can open up to me. Because you need that radical honesty from the client.
Yeah.
And that's why I would tell them, I'm like, I have no judgment. The more you can tell me and the deeper you can tell me, the better I can actually help you. Right. And then I would be anecdotal and share my stories that I hadn't quite shared publicly online yet, like we do on our social media page now. But it was like, here's my story. Lots of people wouldn't believe that I used to be almost 200 pounds. I look very different today than I did then.
Oh, yeah.
So then I started speaking more about it and showing more about it so that it's like, oh, okay, I don't look as bad as she did at that time. We can do this, because I'm like, they're pretty bad, right? And it's just creating that relatability, and so that people will actually be that open, transparent, because they're not afraid to be judged. If they show up every week and they hadn't hit their macros or things like that, it's like, okay, well, we're leaving stuff on the table. What got in the way? Right? And just being very much, I'm not going to be the person that yells at you. I'm going to be the person that doesn't let you keep falling. We're going to hold the standard. And even if I am the only person believing it right now, you will get there as long as you keep working towards the standard.
It's funny, as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about, I mentioned that friend that I had the conversation with earlier today, and a number of pieces of our conversations filtering in here. One piece that filtered in is, it's kind of like a variant on the imposter syndrome, but instead of the imposter syndrome being on the side of the coach, it's the imposter syndrome on the side of the client. And the way that can play out is, very often we'll do this here. We'll bring on somebody who's been through something really traumatic, and we'll tell their story like, oh, wow, this is just an incredible story, and so forth. And then you came through the other side. Wow, that's just amazing. The idea behind that is kind of like what you said. It can be inspiration that, well, their situation was much worse than mine. If they could do it, I can do it. But it can also flip around the other way. It could be, well, my situation isn't nearly as bad as theirs. Why should I even give attention to mine? They're the ones who deserve all the attention. Mine doesn't deserve attention. Mine isn't. Mine. I'm not worthy enough because my problem isn't severe enough.
Yeah. Well, and I combat that with people saying it doesn't have to get to the point of a severe problem for you to want to fix it. Just a little bit of a problem is my favorite place to start working from.
Yeah.
And also, there's people that, we had one client, she was throwing a tantrum because she wanted to quit, because then that would perpetuate her belief that she fails at everything.
Okay.
And so it was challenging because the language was not kind. It was, this 42-year-old person was throwing a 5-year-old tantrum. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm your coach. I feel like this is like, our container is more respectful than us. So I'll give you a beat, come back. And it's like, I wouldn't let them quit. Right? You signed up for 3 months. You can do this. You're trying to feed your old belief. Right? And they continued on after that in a more positive way, because they're like, oh, my tricks didn't work.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how that plays?
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I didn't let you quit. I like you. You got 3 months. You're stuck with me for 3 months, and I'm not going to let you give up on yourself, because that just creates more of what you're in right now. You need to get over this. So if you throw a tantrum, I'll be your tantrum place. And then from there, they actually improved and lost 77 inches on their body and 50 pounds, and like actually started making monumental progress for themselves until they got to their next hurdle. So then I'm like, okay, the deeper you go in your self-work, the more comes to the surface of hidden beliefs and all of those things to work through.
Right.
So that's why you have to work on people's mindset, because no matter how far you go, you're going to hit a roadblock that needs some adjustment.
I just remembered an incident from my own experience. I'm currently divorced, but when I was married, at one point we lived for a year on a lake. And we lived across the lake from where other of my family lived, including my niece. And she was about 3 or 4 years old at the time. She's currently a mom, so this is a while ago. But she came over to visit for the first visit, right? And in her family, or my family, in the family, that part of the family that she lived with, it was not unheard of for her to be able to throw a tantrum in order to get what she wanted. So she was good at it. It was a skill.
Yes.
And so she comes over, and literally within about 5 minutes of arriving, she starts throwing a tantrum, and I can't even tell you what it was about, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was it struck me as being more like, I need attention right now, so I'm going to throw a tantrum, rather than here's a specific issue going on.
Yeah.
But she starts doing it, and now I'm a fairly low key person. My ex is actually a former therapist, so I mean, she already had that built in too. So and the house we were in was one of these open concept houses. So my niece is in the living room, I'm in the kitchen, my ex is in the dining room, and we can all see each other.
Yeah.
And Mickey's there throwing her tantrum, and I look over at my ex, at Louise. I said, "Is this working for you?" And she says, "No, not really. Is this working for you?" "No, not working for me either." And we literally at the same time turned back to her and said in unison, "Sorry, this isn't working for us." And it was like watching a water spigot turn off instantly. Like everything dried up. The tears dried up. The crying stopped. Everything stopped. And she was perfectly fine after that.
Yeah.
Just like it never happened. And I actually, I visited recently and told her the story, because I wasn't sure if she remembered it. She didn't remember it. I was kind of curious to know if she had, but she had no memory of it. But that shows how relatively insignificant whatever it was really was. You know, there was actually no big deal there. It was a behavior pattern that had been previously successful and now was no longer successful. So kind of illustrating what you're talking about. Yeah. Change that experience, and well, now you got to do something else. Yeah. Time to punt.
You just needed some awareness about it. It's like, this house, that doesn't work here.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times they don't know, because that's what they've learned to do. And that's got them the result they wanted. And so they've never actually had to think about that pattern past the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some adults that act that way now too, for the exact same reason. They've never dived into, why is it that I'm triggered by that, and this is how I act.
Right.
It's very freeing when you do, though.
It is, yeah. But there's another piece of that I always found fascinating, because for my own self, in my own case, I was always a little bit afraid of experiencing, like playing back the emotional side of whatever it is that would come up. Yeah. Partly because of my male training. I am trained not to have the emotions, right? So, I believed it. I bought into the training. So the last thing I wanted to do was experience these crappy emotions from the past in order to deal with this thing. The shocking part for me was when I finally actually did it, when I was finally willing to actually do it, I was stunned at how quickly the emotions dissipated. I mean, I thought it was going to take weeks, months. It took like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, what?
We're wired the same as kids, and kids are such a beautiful way for people to learn this, is that when a kid is unhappy, you know about it, and it doesn't last very long. They express it, they release it, and then they move on. Almost like a manic thing where they're like, all of a sudden everything is blood curdling, screaming, and then they're off skipping down the hallway. That's how our nervous systems are designed. A lot of times it's either a skill that we learn to shut everything down because it's not safe, or it's not socially acceptable right now. Yeah. But it's like, when you actually face that emotion that you're feeling, it only sucks or hurts for a very short period of time, because you're facing it, you're naming it, and then it can come to the surface and go away. It's way less painful than pushing it off to the side, because if it's unexpressed, it will remain.
Well, that's the other piece that's so surprising, because after you've gone through this experience and the thing that you thought was going to take forever takes 2 minutes, the other aspect that hits you is, wow, I feel a whole lot better. I didn't realize it was going to be that easy. I thought it was going to be the hardest thing in the world. It was actually easier than retaining what I was doing before.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a surprise. The first time it happens anyway.
Right. We make it so complicated, but it's actually so simple.
Yeah.
It's not always easy. Nope. But it is very simple.
Yeah.
Right. You name it to tame it, face it, all of those things. And then it might still be there, but it's not needing to be expressed anymore, because you let it be at the surface.
And something else that I have 3 co-hosts that I do the show with. There's Jody Lynn, and there's 2 others that I do shows on Monday with. One of them is a gentleman who I mentioned him to you before we got started. He was my 12th interview back in 2012, and he still does shows with me today. And there was one particular show where we were kind of diving in. Well, we've done this actually a few times, but I remember the last time we dived into this. We dived into the question of what we were talking about earlier. What happens if you have an experience that is, 3rd degree of pain or whatever, and then you hear about somebody who has the 10th degree of pain or something like that. And my pain isn't as big as their pain, so it doesn't really count. So it really doesn't deserve attention and so forth. And what we discovered in our conversations was it isn't a question of whether or not one compares to another. It's a question of whether it stops you.
Yes.
So it's not a comparative thing in the sense of, what's going on with somebody else. It's a comparative to how are you doing with your progress, with whatever it is you're trying to progress at. If it's stopping you, then it's the most severe trauma that there is.
Yes. Well, and it's relative, right? It's relative to so many things, but it generally breaks down to that. It's like, did you let it stop you? Is it still stopping you? Right? Or did you let it fuel you, move forward, transmute it, all of those things?
Yeah, the example that Joel and I came up with was the kid in high school who has his first love.
Yeah.
And then they're together for a bit, and then there's the breakup, and now he's heartbroken. Yes. And it's more pain than he's ever experienced in his life. And it's life is pretty much over at this point. That's the way it feels. Now, compared to what many people go through as they go into adulthood, that's mild. But compared to what he's going through, that's severe.
Yes.
And that's the difference right there. Recognizing that it's not the comparison. That's what is it stopping you right now? Then it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people love to compare in different ways, but it's a way of deflecting the work that you need to do. If it's not bad, then I don't have to fix it because really, I'm not that bad. But it's like, no, you're using that so that you don't have to change. So you're choosing that 4th option. Don't change.
Don't change. Yeah.
Yeah.
How often do you find people go for option number 4?
All the time.
That was kind of a softball question, I have to admit.
But it's they choose not changing by saying, I don't have time. And that's I'm going to stay the same because the known chaos feels more comfortable than the potential of change. And when you have that potential for change, it's actually you're increasing the options for expansion in your life. Because
so would you
Go
say
ahead.
that when you get a contact from a potential client who wants to work with you, that's somebody who's already made the decision that I need to do something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just helping them to figure out, okay, have you moved the needle enough forward that this is a now you want to change no matter what, nothing's going to stop you? Or are you just at that awareness point that you need to change? You need help to change. But then when I meet the resistance of, I don't have the time, I don't have the finances, and I'm like, you're staying in that awareness without the willingness to change. So you're not at the point of transformation yet. You're at the point of slight enough discomfort that you're beginning to think about. You give them enough time, you get to enough discomfort, because it's that old saying, the comfort of staying the same or the discomfort staying the same is more than the comfort of change.
That's really the determining factor, isn't it? Which one's more uncomfortable?
Yeah. Because you will not get somebody to change if they are still comfortable in that situation that is really uncomfortable.
Relatively speaking, because it's never really comfortable.
No.
But we kind of convince ourselves that it is.
we very much pretend and we numb to make it feel more comfortable or tolerable at points, but really it's uncomfortable either way. When you're moving forward, it's uncomfortable because everything is growing and changing. But when you're choosing to stay where you don't want to be, saying it's okay, I don't have a big enough problem, then that creates more discomfort because it creates bigger problems, because conflict avoided is conflict multiplied. Your health goes down, your bank account goes down, your relationships suffer. All of those things are uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
Right? Getting up early, eating healthy, working out, that's uncomfortable, but it has a more positive return to it. It improves health. It improves relationships, confidence. All of those things add up that way. So you get to choose which comfort or discomfort are you making.
Which comfort or discomfort are you making? I like that. That's good. Well, that's like the Mike Dooley choice. Do you want the crappy one, the crappier one, or the crappiest one? Take your pick.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Talk about the alcohol piece too, because that was a big deal for you. And the reason I tied that one in, that you mentioned numbing the pain.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what most addiction is about. It's in some way, some form, numbing some kind of pain.
Yeah.
It may be emotional pain. It could be physical pain. It could be just mental, intellectual pain. There's a lot of different varieties in there, but they all kind of add up to that. So when you were dealing with your own stuff, when you were over there in Scotland, the drinking is increasing because that's what everybody does, and that they call it Scotch whiskey for a reason. But that was a big deal. You had to address that numbing issues. Let's talk about that. What did you end up doing?
Well, so when I was in Scotland, I didn't think I had a drinking problem. I moved from Scotland to Australia, didn't think I had a drinking problem. Very big drinking cultures. Came back to Canada, went back to Grand Prairie, didn't think I had a drinking problem. I was proud that I could drink my tall buddies under the table and be perfectly fine because, this little thing could, sassier than heck.
Right.
Right. It was when I got my DUI that I'm like, what are you actually doing?
Oh, okay.
What are you running from? Why do you need to drink every week? Why do you need to drink the volume that you can't remember what you did? Right. Those are the points that I had to get to because I hadn't correlated. I thought I was just having fun. I was doing what, 27-year-old to 29-year-olds do at that time. No, I was actually running away from, I didn't like the feelings I had about a relationship that didn't work out. I didn't like the feelings I had about coming back to Canada when I didn't want to come back to Canada. Coming back to a small town that I said I would never go back to.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I had gone to Calgary and then went overseas and then I came back to Grand Prairie because it was easier to start again closer to home. I had a little bit of support, but it was a lot of elements of things that I hadn't actually voiced my opinion about how I had been treated and like what I genuinely thought about the circumstances I found myself in. Right? I thought I would be further ahead in life. I thought I would be in this healthy, happy relationship and then I was single. It was realizing what I was actually avoiding doing the work of. And this is why I can pick out on people where they're avoiding to do the work. When they lean more into one thing and not the other, I'm like, you don't want to do that thing, but that's where you will unlock.
Yeah.
Because I didn't do that. And it took a while. And I did. I got the DUI. I had to be on a breathalyzer in my vehicle for a year to be able to get my license back. I had to sit in front of my ethics board as a massage therapist and plead my case as to why I should keep my license because I'm a professionally licensed person. And all of that made me actually have to face and explain why I did what I did, why I was choosing to do those things, and had to go through a course to explain that what actually happens, right? When you have one glass of alcohol, it changes your ability to judge things immediately.
Sure.
And so that was essentially the kick in the face that I needed to really re-examine how I was showing up in life. And if I didn't change, my life would turn to complete crap. Right. And it's not what I wanted for my life. So then that's where I made the change. I stopped drinking for a couple of years. And then when I decided that I would maybe dabble a little bit, I had rules, no more than 2 drinks. And I had to be with people that I had good energy with. If it was bad energy, I wasn't allowed to drink because that was part of why it was a trouble before, is because I was avoiding the situation. Right. And it's like, since then, almost 3 years ago, I completely stopped drinking. So I am completely sober.
Congratulations.
By choice. Yeah, thank you. It's one of the best decisions I've made is because there is absolutely no benefit that I have ever seen from it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. And now I have 2 stepsons that are getting to that age. One's 15 and one is 12.
Wow. Yeah.
Now they, for the first time, have an example of what it looks like to live in a small town and have sober people who are entrepreneurs, doing well, happily married. This is an example.
Yeah.
Right? That we can still have a happy life without having any alcohol.
Yeah. That's really, really big.
Yeah, it's not the example you see in most small town Alberta. You see people drinking at very young ages and continuing until they can't anymore.
And like I said, my ex was a former psychotherapist. She was in practice for about 10 years. And most of her clients were people who were court assigned. In other words, they'd been through something similar to what you went through. And they had to go through the treatment in order to satisfy whatever the judge told them to do.
Yeah.
What she found, to her frustration, is that an awful lot of people who go through that, really, it's not enough of a wake-up call for them. I mean, it was for you.
Yeah.
But in her experience, maybe 1 out of 10, if she was lucky, would treat it as the wake-up call. And the others were just trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I get this thing signed off so I can go back to what I was doing?
Yeah.
What's the difference, do you think?
I was willing to face myself. Right. And it's like with my stepsons, we've had these conversations where I'm like, it's really important to face your trauma of losing your mom, because if you don't, you're going to numb it somehow. Right. And you look at the stats in the literature about addictions in any capacity, food, sex, drugs, alcohol, it's all related to a trauma. Right.
Talk about that for a second. Why do you think that is always the case?
Because for the longest time, like especially in my generation, we didn't talk about our trauma. It was like my parents didn't talk about their traumas, and it was just you just carried on. And it's my generation that started talking more about it because it's impactful.
Hell yeah.
It's hugely impactful. And when people don't talk about it, conflict avoided is conflict multiplied. Right?
True.
Yeah. That little pile of laundry becomes a giant pile of laundry. And so when you don't know how to sit and face it, which is the hardest part, but again, we talked about it, it is only painful for that initial really looking at what is it. And then as you work through it, you have language to talk about it.
Right.
And as you have that language, then your brain can adapt to it because now it has a meaning behind it. Versus, I just don't want to look. I don't want to look. Right. And so when we don't actually talk about the things that we've experienced in our lives, or we minimize them, saying that they're not that bad, it's not a big deal, when really, in my experience, for me, it was a monumental thing. So for some people, being overweight, not a big deal. For me, at that point in my life, it was the hardest thing that I had to face. Right. And so again, it goes to that high school breakup. And when we don't have language to work through those things, then we find ways to feel better, which is usually things that don't serve us well.
Well, this kind of ties in, what you were just saying ties into something that's been one of my favorite topics lately. And so I tend to bring it up almost every show, maybe not every show, but pretty close. I become acutely sensitized to just how much of a rampant application of victim psychology happens throughout society. I mean, at all levels of society, and in so many different ways, that so many more than most of us are willing to acknowledge or admit happens. And I'm curious to know what your take is on what happens when that victim psychology is faced with this question that we've been addressing. Faced with, do I want to go after this? Well, no, the victim psychology usually doesn't want to. The victim psychology usually wants to find some way to say it was somebody else's problem. Somebody else is causing this to me. I'm the victim.
Yeah. When people do that, I point out, I'm like, if somebody else did this, then you can't change it. So you're creating it, that you're actually sticking yourself in a cage that you'll never be able to get out of because it's somebody else's fault.
And people will defend that, by the way. They'll take what you just said and they'll say, well, yeah, that's what it is. That's why I am constantly stuck in this place. There's nothing I can do about it.
I'm the devil's advocate. So I'm just like, I start pointing out, like, okay, give me an excuse. You're choosing that one. It's like, okay, you do this. It's like, and just starting when you expose them to stuff, they can't be in the same mindset because now they've seen. So whether or not they choose to live in that lie still remains up to them. But that victim mentality creates more of the same. Right? And it's like, okay, what is actually in your control? Your thoughts, your actions, your efforts, those are always within your control. You might have 3 crappy choices, but you still have to make a choice to start moving forward to change the dynamic of things. because otherwise you just guarantee you're getting more of the same, if not worse. And it's really showing people, okay, are you taking ownership of your life? Do you have radical accountability? Do you have radical honesty with yourself? Right? We don't get to determine the cards that we're handed in life. We only get to determine how we play them.
Mm.
Right? Because if we could determine the cards we got in life, everybody would choose something different. Right? But we get given things that help us learn about our character, because the only way we really learn about our character is finding what our capacity is, and that's by being challenged one way or another.
As we also discover that when we identify a capacity and then work through or past it in some way, then we find we have a new capacity. The capacity changes.
And it will continue to change.
Yeah.
We never really truly know our full capacity, because a lot of times we're living well under our potential. Right? Go run an Ironman, go run a marathon. See how far you can get and if you can actually cross the finish line. Right? One step at a time.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I continue to be fascinated though by the victim psychology, not just in the case of trying to resolve a recurring issue in our lives, but just in the way that it plays out in broader society. I look at the political realm, left and right, both sides, chock full of victim psychologies. I look at what happens in entertainment. Most entertainment is based on victim psychology. I look at the messaging that comes through. The messaging is all about you're a victim in this. We're all in this together to help the victim, because there are so many people who are victims in all of this. I mean, it's relentless. It's everywhere, and the more that I look at it, the more staggered I am by just how widespread it is, how deeply entrenched in our culture it really is. But by the same token, I'm also seeing, and I think this is the last thing I want you to comment on before we do some wrap up. I'm also seeing signs of people who are beginning to recognize that their facade is falling apart. Despite their best efforts to maintain that option number 4, do nothing, the facade just continues to fall apart anyway. And so there's still kind of like what you went through. I mean, you described how you had no other options. You had to either just do this or nothing. There was really no other choice for you. It was Hobson's choice. People are finding that more and more. I'm wondering if that's like, is this like a broad tendency that's actually playing out? Is that what I'm actually seeing? Because it seems like it. I mean, what do you see from the perspective you have, running your practice?
I think more people are actually realizing that, because it's prevalent for the victimhood, that it is our messaging. It is everything you see around you. So it actually is perpetuating it. So when it doesn't feel like it fits anymore, you'll have those moments where it's like, but I don't want to keep doing that. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't want to keep doing that. So like one thing at a time, you start doing different things. And then you realize there's other people that have done those different things, because we do exist amongst the victimhood. Some people can be amongst it peacefully because they realize it's not necessarily that person choosing. It's because they're so ingrained and surrounded by enough people that believe the same thing that they think they're just living their best life.
Right.
But when you have things like this, where we're exposing that there's a different side of things, and there isn't just a victim mindset available, that there are different things that we can actually do, then those who are kind of in that limbo are like, hey, that sounds like something I might want to try. Because you can always go back to what you know.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
At least give it a try if you feel like something is stirring inside you to do something different. And we're getting stronger messaging from podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. There's a lot more available now that isn't supporting victimhood. It's supporting empowerment.
Yeah.
Right. So when we choose our words more carefully and we understand that there is power behind what we say, then we are creating change just by words that we're speaking, writing, and hearing.
Interesting. You use those two words in the same paragraph, because I can recall a time very recently where the prevalent talk, particularly on television, was about empowering victims.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not what you're saying. You're changing that whole messaging around. And
Yeah.
I'm hearing more of that kind of thing from guests like yourself here on the show. So I'm seeing that there's a transition going on there, but that's not an easy transition because that other messaging, it's still out there. It hasn't gone away. It's receding. It's not as strong as it was, but it's pretty strong. It's still there.
All we're doing is giving another option, right? There's always that positive view and a negative view. It's always going to be there. It's not about eradicating it. It's giving another meaning to the brain. It's giving another option on the path. We're not just A or A anymore.
Yeah.
It's A or B. So then your brain actually has to start considering both sides of things instead of just the singular one.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sad that Jody Lynn wasn't able to connect in. She's been texting me. The internet just isn't coming back, so she's not going to be able to rejoin us here to finish up. A couple things, though, I wanted to touch on before we finish up. First of all, if there's someone listening who wants to reach out and perhaps explore the possibility of working with you, see if there's a fit, how do they find you?
On Instagram. So at the.relentless.couple. That's where we're most active on for our coaching. Send me a DM and I will be me that you're talking to. We're happy to answer any questions, anything that you want to know.
And give that that handle to Jen, and she'll make sure she puts it in the show notes so people can easily find it.
Yes, absolutely.
And the second thing that I like to do is I like to kind of tap into something that I noticed a few years ago, because now that we live in the age of the internet, I mean, my favorite way of saying it, 30 years ago, we couldn't have had this conversation. It wasn't possible. Now it's like commonplace, right? 30 years ago, we didn't have podcasts, we didn't have blogging, we didn't have Zoom sessions, we didn't have the social media, we didn't have all these tools. TikTok, we didn't have any of that stuff, and now we have all of it. And what has come along with it is people like yourself are sharing. I mean, yes, you have a career going, but you're also sharing the information as widely as you can. And it's being picked up. I mean, you came onto the show here. People are picking up. Well, we actually had some live visitors who were listening in throughout the entire show, picking up information. Yes. We have no idea what was particularly resonating with them. But one thing we do know is that when it resonates, people find some way to apply it in their lives. And maybe they don't become like a client of yours, but they'll do something to make a change somewhere.
Yes.
And that's the kind of ripple effect that happens over and over and over again. But what I also noticed that goes along with that is we don't get a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
So I've made it a new practice. I've said, and I'll do it here too, Chris, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways you didn't even know about just by doing podcasts and doing Instagrams and doing all the stuff that you're doing. On their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Well, and that goes ditto to you as well, right? But it's such a beautiful honor to be able to come up and share things that I know are going to be impactful to people, even if they never pay me. That it's creating impact, because that's my biggest driver. I don't care if I get paid for it. I want to impact as many lives as I can, because then that makes the whole world that we all exist in that much better. Right? The acknowledgement is the gravy on top for all of us, but the impact that we can have now is tremendous, and it's such a privilege.
Well, it's also why I try to give that acknowledgement, because it isn't given. It's ignored.
That's why we have to be relentless. We just show up no matter what. We show up and we do our thing because it feels in our alignment, and then it just comes around.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'm sorry that Jody Lynn couldn't finish, but I'm sure she'll tap into, find out what we had to say. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me today and sharing. And wow, I love what you're doing. I love your take on all this stuff. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for creating this platform. It is so needed.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. And I mean that literally, because I've been doing this it'll be 13 years next month, and I covered everything that needed to be covered in the first 3 years. I just had to keep going because this is so much fun. So I love the benefit that I give to everybody else, but I love the benefit that I get out of it too. It's win-win. It's a good thing. Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere, and we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.